Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Another day of red flag warnings brought another day of fires to San Diego County. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Crews are responding to two different fires right now, including one in La Jolla that prompted an evacuation order. And KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne is live near that fire now with the latest. Tanya?
Maya, we're here in La Jolla where a fire broke out here off of Via Alicante and Gilman Drive around 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. You can see behind me that there is tons of dry vegetation as well as those structures that are sitting right on top of that hillside. And of course, we've been having those strong winds that have stuck around all week. Evacuation orders went into place for the surrounding neighborhoods immediately since there were threats to those structures. The fire spread to nearly 2 acres, but fire crews were able to stop forward progress within the hour. Here with me is Battalion Chief Taj Capri. Could you tell me a little bit more about maybe how this fire started and how crews were able to get a hold of it so quickly?
Well, at this moment, we don't know how the fire was started, but it was fuel, wind, and terrain driven. It is moving at an extremely fast rate of speed, but through a coordinated, collaborative effort through multiple agencies in our county, we were able to quickly and efficiently stop it and keep the spread to approximately 2 acres.
And now these evacuation orders went into effect very quickly, not giving a lot of the homeowners a lot of time. Can we talk about preparedness as we're seeing a lot of these little fires spark up throughout the county?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it happens in these types of situations. It happens quick, and it is extremely important for citizens and residents to be prepared, take the warning seriously, and be guided by police officers or fire officials on the best way to evacuate from the scene.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
And those evacuation orders have been lifted now, but crews are expected to remain on scene for several more hours. Live in La Jolla, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And crews are also battling a brush fire in the Otay Wilderness north of the U.S.-Mexico border. And according to CAL FIRE, the border fire has grown to 228 acres and is 0% contained. It started around 2:30 this afternoon in a remote area near Otay Mountain Truck Trail. A smoke advisory has been issued for Otay Mesa and the surrounding areas. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Firefighters quickly contained another brush fire on Fairmont Avenue near Grantville. And this video that you see was shot by a nearby resident using their cell phone. The fire was first reported just after 9 o'clock this morning. Firefighters say low winds were also a contributing factor to firefighting efforts. The Metro Arson Strike Team is investigating the cause.
The fire's still a huge battle, and of course we have that fire threat remaining for a little while longer. But look at this, the weekend bringing some much needed moisture across the area. I'll be talking about those rainfall total potentials coming up.
Firefighters across Southern California are expected to get some rain relief in the days ahead, but depending on where it falls and how much, it could unleash a whole different kind of threat on people in Los Angeles who've already lost everything. Laura Aguirre explains.
Thousands of firefighters, battle-worn by weeks on the front lines, continue to fight for total containment of multiple fires today, with a weekend forecast that could bring rain relief and a possible new threat. Forecasters say more rain could fall across Southern California before Monday than it's had since last June. The needed rain brings with it the risk of mudslides and possible flooding, prompting CAL FIRE to fill pallets of sandbags for distribution to residents in the fire-scarred areas, where there's precious few trees, structures, and vegetation to handle the rain. A new wildfire erupted Wednesday, the Hughes, which ignited north of Santa Clarita Wednesday and so far has burned over 10,000 acres. At one point, over 50,000 people were under evacuation orders or warnings.
As long as there is active flame, we will constantly be reassessing on where the evacuation warnings and orders need to be.
With the Hughes fire, location helps.
We're fortunate because we can dip right out of Castaic Lake, so we've got a lot of water up there.
A water access and wind advantage over the firefights to the south.
It's nowhere near what we saw over in the Palisades and Eaton Fire with 80 to 100 mile an hour gusts.
Those two blazes, the most deadly and destructive of the fires this month, are both over 70% contained this hour, and recovering residents there are waiting to see what the weekend of rain ahead will bring. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
First responders have been working around the clock battling the fires in Los Angeles. Coming up, how therapists here in San Diego are working to offer them some peace of mind. And we've learned new details about the 1,500 active duty U.S. troops being sent to the southern border. 500 of them will be from Camp Pendleton. Marine Corps officials say that the 500 Marines and sailors from the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force have been ordered to deploy immediately and will be tasked to carry out missions called for by the president to secure the border. The troops will support U.S. Customs and Border Protection, but are not authorized for law enforcement activities like making arrests or seizing drugs. Today, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking President Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. The Ronald Reagan-appointed judge called the order, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. Lee Waldman is in New York City as this legal battle ramps up.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the United States.
A court battle is brewing over President Donald Trump's executive order declaring an end to birthright citizenship. But the CEO of the National Constitution Center says the 14th Amendment is clear.
Ever since the amendment was passed in the 19th century, that's been interpreted to mean that if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen, whether or not your parents are here illegally.
The 14th Amendment resulted from overturning the 1857 Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenship to black people and upheld slavery in U.S. territories. The executive order keys in on one phrase in the amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
They're suggesting that if you're here illegally or your parents are here illegally, they have allegiance to a foreign power, in other words, another government, and therefore that you're not a citizen.
Rosen says trying to end birthright citizenship isn't a simple task.
Basically, the Supreme Court would have to change its mind and reject an interpretation of birthright citizenship that goes back more than 100 years.
The executive order aims to end birthright citizenship for children born after it was signed, but Hiroshi Motomura, immigration scholar at UCLA, says he worries about the thousands of people born before.
That creates a precariousness that I think has a real potential to undermine societal cohesion for many people in this country.
In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
Churches and schools are no longer off limits for immigration enforcement under a new Trump administration policy. A directive from the Department of Homeland Security this week rescinds prior guidelines which limited ICE and CBP operations in sensitive areas such as churches and schools. Our media partner KGTV spoke to the CEO of Catholic Diocese of San Diego, who says the change creates fear in the community.
More than the threat, it's because the church is here to serve the people. So it's not about us, it's about the community that comes to us. So the threat is more on the community side than to the church. So that's where we are worried as a church, as Catholic Charities, that these individuals, when they are needing help, would stay away from us out of fear.
Catholic Charities says it will continue to work with its partners in San Diego and across the U.S. A community pool that closed during the pandemic reopened in San Ysidro today. KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us why this resource is so vital to the South County community.
3, 2, 1, we're open!
The Borderview Family YMCA is open again. After being closed since 2020.
This pool is more than just a pool to our community.
And you'd be surprised how many kids have never been to the ocean in this community. This is their ocean. This is their community. And if you were a kid like me, when I was coming up, I wasn't living in a very safe environment. And this is safety for some kids.
The pool is not only open, it's been renovated thanks to a $1 million grant from the County of San Diego. The YMCA says this facility will serve over 43,000 residents, including over 4,200 elementary school students. They'll get water safety education and swimming lessons.
Every single child in this area is going to be safe in and around water.
The Red Cross reports that 79% of children in lower-income families have little to no swimming ability, which increases their risk of drowning. And the CDC reports drowning is one of the leading causes of death for children in the U.S.
Under age 4, it is the leading cause of death. Under age 14, it's the second leading cause of death.
This location is vital for the South Bay community because it's one of the only accessible public places for residents to swim, since the nearby beaches are constantly closed due to sewage contamination.
It offers a space for water exercise and lap swimming for individuals that are just looking to get healthy. It provides a fun and safe space for families and students to gather, play, and have a sense of community.
The Borderview Family YMCA is hosting a free community pool party this Saturday, January 25th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Firefighting in California has a tool that stretches across the state. It's called Alert California. Created and operated by UC San Diego, it has 1,146 cameras to spot fires before they're seen by us. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has more on how the technology has helped with recent SoCal fires.
Alert California doesn't put out any fires, and it's not supposed to, but its cameras are at work 24/7 searching the landscape for signs of smoke so firefighters can stop a wildfire before it really gets started.
We try to confirm, identify fires in the incipient phase. Once they get a hold in windy conditions like this, our network provided enhanced situational awareness so that they could see what roads they could get out. They could see the progression of the fire.
That network Neil Driscoll is talking about can be seen with a quick look at alertcalifornia.org. The Southern California end of it shows the cameras that have been trained on the conflagrations like the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire in L.A. County and the Lilac Fire in San Diego that ignited overnight this week. At night, Driscoll says the cameras focus on the fire, but in daylight, when heat and low humidity make fires more combustible, they look for the smoke.
This gives you enhanced situational awareness of what the fire is doing. Look, it's laid over.
We're looking at the Hughes Fire north of L.A. When fire smoke is laid over, that means the fire is being fueled by strong, dry winds. Alert California is an AI system that has learned what the angle and behavior of smoke means to the fire's progression and how authorities should respond.
How's the smoke bent over? Do I send 2 battalions? Do I send 3? So the dispatcher is able to use these data, and the density of the cameras is now such that our view sheds are getting closer to covering regions of complex topography.
The alert system often beats 911 calls. CAL FIRE gives the example of a remote San Diego County fire flagged by the alert system that firefighters put out before authorities got even one 911 call about it.
So it's nighttime. You can see the near infrared sunrise.
Driscoll shows the view of a camera atop Palomar Mountain pointed west.
Now get ready, because you're going to see something that I've never seen before. Okay? Look at that. Oh, did you see that?
Yep.
You saw the change from onshore right there. Okay, watch this, to offshore.
He says global warming is changing everything, overrunning the old models of firefighting. He says Alert California is one way to stay on top of that changing reality. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
People displaced by the wildfires have caused a massive surge in demand for housing in Los Angeles. Supply was already limited, leading to inflated prices. As Natasha Chen reports, many people looking for housing say gouging is rampant.
I opened up my curtains and all I see was orange, red, black, smoke, everything. All the parking structure was on fire. So my instinct was to get out.
Rosa Olvera escaped this Altadena apartment.
I could literally feel my windows hot.
Covering her 2 daughters in blankets. They've been staying at an evacuation shelter in Pasadena ever since.
One day I was good with my daughters, and next day I don't have anything.
Her scorched 2-bedroom unit cost her $2,400 a month. But now the single mom says similar units nearby are going for almost $3,000, which she cannot afford. Those looking for larger single-family rental homes are also finding stiff competition and inflated pricing.
They chose a family that was willing to sign a 3-year lease and pay 1 year full in cash over us.
The Los Angeles area's housing market was already tight before the fires, but now tens of thousands of displaced residents are looking at the same limited supply.
You walk into these open homes, there's hundreds of people there. And they're just price gauge. I mean, it's how much are you going to give me? How much are you going to give me?
By one estimate, rental data website Zumper shows average rents so far in January for houses in the city of Los Angeles jumped 42% compared to the average in December. And anecdotes of soaring rental prices have become commonplace.
I feel lost. My wife feels lost.
Hugh Adair and his wife lost their recently renovated Altadena home. Now, as they search for a rental.
Yeah, let's see here. $10,000 deposit. That's fees. Who has that, right? You just had in the back pocket. Oh yeah, here's 10 grand cash.
He says they lost out on a rental home when someone else bid $1,000 more a month. Since the fires, California's price gouging statute has been in effect, prohibiting a price increase of more than 10% on things like food, emergency supplies, hotel rooms, and rental housing. Violators could spend a year in jail, be fined up to $10,000 plus civil penalties. Landlords can't get around this by encouraging a bidding war. They've now sent at least 200 warning letters to hotels and landlords who could be violating the law. But with enforcement just beginning and long-term scarcity of supply coupled with overwhelming demand, Olvera wishes she could tell landlords.
When things like this happen, that's when everybody comes together. It doesn't even matter what you have, because you could lose it.
And multiple wildfires in and around Los Angeles have been burning for 17 days. It's taking a toll on first responders. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says some local therapists are offering free therapy to help them cope.
As time passes, you gain experience. And as time passes, you're exposed to more and more emergencies. I would be a liar if I said I never cried after a call, right? I'm a human being first.
Josh Rubenstein is a battalion chief from Northern California. He's been assisting with the Eaton fire in Altadena since January 10th.
We lose more men and women to suicide than we do line-of-duty deaths. Back in the day, the stronger you are, the less you spoke about the emotional aspect of the job.
About a dozen San Diego mental health providers are stepping in to help. They are offering free mental health and substance abuse therapy to first responders. Nancy Fung Smith, a trauma therapist, is one of them.
Feeling the devastation, the weight of it, right? And that then wanting to reach out for coping, to either that be numbing or compartmentalizing or substance use, right? It's hard, especially when things can be really demanding on you day to day.
Helping first responders means understanding their unique needs. That's according to Steve Blackburn. He coordinates peer support for LA County Fire.
A firefighter won't come for help until they're broken. We don't do routine maintenance. We're good at helping others. We're terrible at taking care of ourselves. If they open up to a therapist and it's a wrong therapist, they will never go back again.
He said cost and availability are additional barriers.
I love that they want to help them, give them a few sessions, but if you're a clinician, the other thing is payment. Who's going to pay? How does it work? A lot of times, because PTSD is part of our job, it goes to workman's comp, and nobody takes workman's comp.
Blackburn urges therapists offering their services to ensure they can work with first responders long-term before starting treatment.
Thank you so much for bringing them out.
Rubenstein says support services like therapy, peer counseling, and service dogs help first responders take a moment to decompress.
Because for 2 minutes, a firefighter can take their mind off of all the death and destruction that we are seeing, and we can get licked on by a Labrador, right? Or a golden retriever. And it truly takes your mind off the emotional aspect of what we're dealing on a day-to-day basis.
Visit kpbs.org for therapist contact information. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Another busy and dry week across our area as we continue to deal with that fire threat. The great news, though, is it's going to start going down, the fire threat, that is, as cool air returns and humidity slowly rises. And then we add in the chance for rain or snow as we head through the weekend. Some spots, mostly on those upslope spots across the mountains, they will pick up more than an inch of rain possibly as we head into Tuesday. For right now, though, we still have those red flag warnings out. They will remain in place as we head into tomorrow, because even into tomorrow morning, we still have a little bit of this wind threat here remaining, as some of those winds are still quite gusty, more than 60 miles per hour across parts of the area. So you do want to remember the fire threat is still there, but that should be coming down as we head into tomorrow morning. It goes to 42 for the low in the city as you work your way outside here. Ramona coming out down to 38, 35 in Mount Laguna. And we get a lot more cool air starting to make a difference here. 71 the high as we head through tomorrow. That's just the beginning of things for some of our coastal communities. As you look towards Ramona, we're still in the mid 70s, but we will start to see some of those numbers come down, because ultimately the story is bringing in this storm system as we head into the weekend. You can add quite a bit of moisture here across Southern California. There will be snow, especially as you get above 5,000 feet. That's where we're going to see those snowfall potentials go up. Some spots in the mountains could even pick up more than a foot of snow, or around a foot of snow. As we get through your Saturday and Sunday, watch out for some of those showers, persistent even towards the coast. It knocks the numbers down into the 60s. Like I said, tomorrow, just the beginning of that cool down that really comes in for the weekend. We keep more of the clouds, the moisture around as you look towards those inland communities for Saturday and Sunday, with that chance for rain. Temperatures falling into the upper 50s by the time we get into Sunday's afternoon high. So it is going to be, again, quite a different air mass coming through. For the mountain communities, we are looking at snowfall potential. It starts off at least slow at first as we get highs near 40 degrees, but by the time we get into Sunday, those temperatures come down and the snowfall potential goes up. And we will be talking about more rain as we head into some of the deserts potentially, even as we go close out the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
There was a time in San Diego when much of the water that we drank didn't come to us in pipes from Northern California or from the Colorado River. It came from our own mountains. Ken Kramer shows us how in this story about San Diego.
Here it is, just a few parts of it remaining, about all there is left to see, in fact, of what was once this. One of the most amazing structures ever built in San Diego, made of 9 million board feet of redwood. It was a 33-mile-long open tray of flowing water. I think you had to see it to believe it, but at least there are pictures. See, it used to be in San Diego that most of the water we drank and used for irrigation came from wells, and it was salty, sometimes nauseating, not good water, really. But in 1889, this flume changed everything, and it was just an enormous project to bring good mountain water from the mountains to the eastern part of La Mesa and on to San Diego. First of all, there had to be a dam built way up on the San Diego River at Boulder Creek. That's where the water was captured to be put in the flume. And the flume itself, just imagine what it was like. 6 feet wide, 18 inches deep, full of water running all those miles, and it had to be all downhill, of course, so the water would keep flowing. There were tunnels. Here's the Los Coches tunnel being built, and more than 300 trestles, including this one, the Los Coches trestle, 1,774 feet long, 65 feet high. Nobody had ever seen anything like that in San Diego. So amazing was this thing that on opening day, 22nd of February, 1889, public officials and dignitaries took a ride in wooden boats down a good part of the flume. Sitting right there in the front, that's the governor of California, whose name, interestingly, was Robert W. Waterman. So the flume was built, but then it had to be maintained. It was wood, after all, and sometimes it leaked. So you had flume walkers who saw trouble spots and made repairs, inspectors continuously patrolling for problems, and houses were built along the route, so those workers and their families had a place to live. Looking back, there were lots of issues with the San Diego flume. For one thing, in the hot summer months, all that water in a fairly shallow container moving along, too much of that water evaporated. In 1919, a windstorm blew over the Sweetwater trestle that had been weakened by leaks and deterioration of the wood. But in its time and for its purpose, it did its job, the water eventually ending up in La Mesa Reservoir, piped from there into San Diego. La Mesa Reservoir, which would later be built up into what would become Lake Murray. And some of the water, too, went to a rancher's pond, sometimes known as Duck Pond. If you've ever been to Anthony's Fish Grotto, you know the Duck Pond is still there, even though the flume is gone. No, it just didn't age well. By the late 1920s, customers were demanding repairs, and the state-of-the-art in water delivery and storage had changed. In time, dams were built, the lower Otay and Morena, and pipes, siphons, and concrete tunnels replaced the flume. But what a thing it was! Here's Old Highway 80 and the flume, now the Lake Jennings Park Road off-ramp from Interstate 8, where just up the road at the R.M. Levy Water Treatment Plant, the Helix Water District has kept just a few bits of the flume that visitors can see. An old wagon that rolled down the flume during its construction. There's some of the redwood pipe that replaced it, and then a section, just a section, of what was once an engineering marvel that delivered good, sweet water from the mountains and became a remarkable part of history about San Diego.
And you can watch Ken Kramer's About San Diego at 8 o'clock tonight here on KPBS. And you can find our stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.